I'll just run through the presentation relatively quickly, but probably what I'll do during the presentation is try and anticipate a lot of the questions. As you'll understand, I get a lot of feedback all the time, and I think I understand the nature of the concerns and interests that people have. But firstly, on FireFinch, so how that name came about is Marilla Mine. Marilla is a heron. It's a big bird. And so I just simply Googled in Mali birds, and the FireFinch, this cute little thing came up. And I love doing arty-farty things, and that's where the little logo came up with. And I wanted something that was just unique and a bit different. So I think it serves that purpose. And it's also a very cute little bird. They're everywhere in Mali. We'll just move on from that. So just to revisit, probably just watching that video again, I just can't wait to get started on this. I mean, it's really, really exciting. These sort of things don't happen very often where you get such a fantastic opportunity. I've said several times that this is our Dundee moment. Northern Star have been much in the news. And I can remember, I can't remember what I was doing a presentation in New York, and Bill was there and I was there. It's an ASX thing. I had mine in Finland and previous companies, and he had Paulson's. And if anything, and from what he went on to do from that by buying Dundee, just amazing. That's our opportunity. We're buying a whole bunch of sunk capital. Replicating the plant, 300 million at least. The drilling probably 50. Plus all the risk and financing that would come with that. We're going to be a gold producer in a week. I mean, that's just fantastic. The mine life here, we'll find out, and I'll talk a little about that later, but so far we're 1.3 million ounce resource, and upgrades are imminent. We're going to we're treating the tailings today and making money. That's all going. It's just continuing, a business as usual. But we intend to grow that through bringing in satellite pits and ultimately the big Marilla pit. And then the really exciting thing I think about Marilla is the exploration upside. This is not a easy ore body to understand, and we've only just got going and trying to put it together. And it's a big system. And I think the solution, the change from when Anglo and Barrick had this is one, time and gold price. So these guys were not stupid. They did a lot of work. They brought in a lot of scientists, but the gold price at the time, and also a mindset when you start mining, they had 1 week that was 80 grams, and when I think in year 2. So there forms a mindset that you're coming in with a fresh view. This has been tired and neglected and had no love for a decade, and that's the difference. The last thing is that following the resolutions today, we are well funded. The tranche 2 will settle middle of next week after we've paid Barrick, and we still don't know exactly what that's going to be, but roughly around 27 US is our best estimate. And as you would have seen this morning, some of you, we closed our share purchase plan, and we went out seeking 6 million, which I thought was pretty ambitious, and we were just blown away at the response. We had 10 million. Just under 10 million received. And the position that we took is that with this company, we're bringing in a whole bunch of new, largely institutional and sophisticated investors, but there'll be retail shareholders have been in this company for a long time. And I know a lot of its history before I got involved, but so some long-suffering people in there. So the last thing we were going to do is cut back our retail supporters. So we took all of the oversubscriptions, and thank you very much for that support. Where we are in Mali, I think this is a really powerful slide. If you've put Western Australia in the same sort of scale and so forth, this is the Eastern Goldfields. Well, there's no Kalgoorlie. It's probably the biggest difference. But there's an awful lot of big mines there. The industry in West Africa now is quite sophisticated. You get most of the services and so forth that you would expect. And they go between different countries. So we're right in the thick of a gold field. But the difference is, this reminds me more of when 25 years ago when I was working for Delta and we were finding things like Kanowna Belle and Sunrise Dam. The level of maturity of exploration here is still very low, and a lot of opportunity. And we own a mill. And if you look at that in the Australian context, things like the guys who've owned mills win. Paddington would be probably the best example. Its original ore body disappeared, I don't know, probably 30 years ago, something like that, but it's still going strong today. So current tailings processing, what we're doing here is you can see there the water cannons are, in the distance are going, but they just slurry up the tailings, put them through the plant, and only for another few days, they goes off to the pit. That'll be stopping very soon. And then goes through the plant and makes gold bars. What we're doing there, we've got a life until about May on the Barrick numbers. We are bringing in some air core rigs. They'll be there very shortly. It's still a bit damp after the wet season, but we'll be drilling shortly to see if there's extensions to the planned mining area, and we're tearing the whole thing apart in terms of costs and so forth to see if we can further optimize it and squeeze more life out of that. So that work's all going on now. So the other thing is the plant. I mean, I have answered this before, but I get many questions around, are we buying a lemon? Well, the first thing is, I guess, before we talk about what we've done, if you just think about it, it's producing gold today. So we know it works. It's Barrick and Anglo Gold, and those guys are, they're very competent at what they do. And the crew that's there has been there for, many of the guys have been there for 20 years. And frankly, they love this plant, and some of them were there when it was built, including the general manager. In terms of things to be done at the mine, there's relatively minor things in the plant. The mill has been sitting on its bearings for probably too long, so there's a bit of work there, but that's not fatal. And there's a little minor works around, but probably the biggest issue is around the power station, which you can see bottom left there. And it's a big power station, but it's old. Resolute, our neighbors at Syama, they replaced a similar vintage one just recently. Here, the power station will not support a full ramp up back to crushing and grinding. We're well into getting commercial solutions and tenders where there'll be temporary power. The Agreco, Caterpillar, and all those kind of guys can bring that in quite quickly. We don't need it today, but in the next coming months. And then we're also out there talking to people about permanent solutions for the power. And people will come in and build your power station and sell you power across the fence. So there may be zero capital to us. We're well across all that. Probably the other issues to do with integration, people. I've mentioned that in the past. And I'm hopeful that we've been doing a lot of recruiting with African expertise, local expertise, and my preference is always local rather than expatriate. So we've done a lot of recruiting, and once we actually own this asset in about a week or so, I'll be telling everyone what we're doing there and the recruitment we've done. But what's one of our biggest worries is getting the right skills to complement what we have already and what we'll inherit at the mine. The other big issue is a whole bunch of administration, and as you could imagine, disentangling an operation from the global Barrick administration is not easy. And hopefully you guys never find out about it, but I'm sure we're going to have our dramas in the first month or so, but nothing too serious. But we'll go to talk about Marilla Pit again, the big Marilla Pit. So you saw a picture of it earlier. It's filled with water and tailings. So when you go back to mine that, we've got to pump, and we've got to remove the tailings, slurry them up, and reconfigure the tailings dam to become a tailings dam again, rather than something that's been mined and put into the pit. You can see there on the left that it comes quite shallow. There are many sections. I won't go through them, but really what I want to talk about is just what we're doing now. Off to the right, you can see Marilla the gorilla, the purple ore that drove the mine in its early days. Absolutely sensational stuff. And off to the left, the large mineral resource, which is an Anglo Gold resource from 2008. Now that's a 1 gram cutoff largely. It's a numbers-driven estimate. And what we've been doing is to go back to the start with Marilla and get the data. There was a lot of issues. And unfortunately, it took a while to resolve them. That's what 10 years of lack of love does for you. We've got that together now, and now we're into the numbers. So we'll be seeing now, and we're trying to create much more coherent, sensible shapes than those you see there. And it's going to look quite a bit different. And any geological person there can see the sort of geometries that, these arcuate geometries that we've got there. And that's going to hang together quite well, I think. And also to the right there, the extension. So we hope to have a resource. It may be a month away. I don't know. We'll just see what the process goes. But we want to get it right. The other thing is that's an inferred resource. The reason is that we recognized that the resource was probably largely right, but we couldn't verify the data. So we'll do that. And now we'll be able to go to measured and indicated on a portion of it, and thus to a reserve. On the satellite pits, we're very well advanced here. There's two in particular. There's ones you see there in Vipon and Tola that we hope to bring into production next year to complement the tailings operation, essentially providing 2021 as a bridge to bringing on the big pit. So we're well down the track there. We've got provisional resources working on those. They'll probably come out to market in the next couple of weeks with a bit of luck, and started preliminary mine designs. We've got a little bit of work to do, pump out some water and dispose of that, and set up haul roads and things, again, relatively minor. So we're working our way through all that. On our coating deposit, which is nearby, we're working on that. I think we might wait until we've done infill drilling before we put out a resource on that. It's quite widely drilled, and so we'll wait. The drill rigs, with luck, we've done the pads. Things are drying out, so the rigs might be there in a week or two. The wet season's dragged on a bit. I had hoped we'd be there, but last thing you want is a big rig puddling in mud. It'll just cost us money. So we'll be drilling not only at the tailings dam, but here hopefully we'll have a couple of rigs going quite soon. And to verify and upgrade those near-term production opportunities. And then once we have a Marilla resource model, we'll get in and look to test that. So here it is, Marilla the Gorilla. You know, one of the you'd love this mine today. You'd make so much money if you had it in its heyday, and it might still be there. You know, there's been no drilling for a long, long time, and this is a section that gets me going. So if you look at this, off to the right there, there's some degree well, look in the main pit, 84 meters at 11 grams. That's what they were mining in the heyday. Now, it doesn't just have to happen once, it can happen again. So these steep things and arcuate things, there's geometries like that in many mines around the world. Off to the right there, some sensational hits just outside the pits. Others are not as good round about it. It's not well understood. We'll be in there drilling as soon as we can. And you can also see to the left that once the pit is dewatered and you're down to those mining benches, you can be in more or less straight into ore. And we'll have more images once we do a proper resource model and you have a good look at that. And then in the medium term, there's the exploration potential. We're going to have 700 square kilometers around this mill. So if you find 100,000 ounces out in the middle of nowhere, it's no use to you. If you find it next to a mill you own, it's worth a lot of money. And there may be better deposits than that out there. Much of the exploration was very old-fashioned, and I mean, we did this here 10, 15 years ago. Deeply weathered terrains and only shallow drilling. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. And there are targets that are not drilled. And we're thinking about, when we've got the air core rig on the tailings dam, we might take a run at a couple of these because we need to give the driller enough meters to make it worth as well to bring an air core rig in. So we're just having a little bit of a think about whether we might have a play with some of these anomalies, with some that are only within a kilometer of the pit. You know, could be fun, but we're just getting a head around that now. So briefly, just an overview. So we're completing the capital raising and acquisition by the next week. We hope to close. We're working very hard on various resource estimates and reserve estimates for Marilla itself, the 4 satellite pits, and the tailings. So there's actually a lot to do. Out of that will flow a sensible mine plan, operating and capital costs, whatever they might be, and production schedules. So we'll be able to offer guidance looking forward. So our immediate task is to make sure we don't break anything. The temptation when you take over something like this is to try and, we can do everything better. Well, it's working and it's making money. So the instruction for everyone is let's get in and learn and know and understand and then change things. So we just want to keep it going. Bring in those satellite deposits to blend with the tailings and try and increase that life. Start dewatering Marilla to get in and drill it. And then the infill and extension drilling at the satellite pits and Marilla. So this next 2-3 months, I mean, things will come as they get completed. They'll be going to be very rich in information. And I think one of the important things for all our shareholders is that this asset has come from nowhere. Most things like this creep up on people because there's a discovery drill hole and then some more drilling and then a first resource estimate and every broker in Perth is competing to try and see if they can get the business because it's an emerging discovery. This came overnight from nothing. The market knew nothing and then bang, one day. And I think there's a lot for people to get their head around. I mean, it's great the interest so far, but what the aim is here is to become a genuine mid-tier producer. And I'll be careful about saying any numbers or anything because ASX hate that. But all of those out there can do arithmetic. It's 4.5 million ton a year plant and maybe say 1.3 million tons, 1.3 grams head grade. Choose 92% recovery, see what that number is. And I want to do that for about 10 years minimum. I think it's capable of it. There's a lot of work to be done, and I can't wait. What we might do is take some questions here in the room and then maybe go to the on the webinar. I think Danica can do that for me. Is that right, Danica?
Sure thing. So if anyone's got any questions, feel free to type them into the Q&A function at the bottom of your screen.
Okay, is there any questions in the room? You all happy? No?
How do you see the strategic relationship with Resolute playing out?
So the question there was, how do I see the strategic relationship with Resolute playing out? And probably the answer is, I probably don't know, given the change in management there, to be perfectly honest. I think what we'll do is we'll just let the dust settle there and let's think they've got other things to worry about at the moment. However, what I will say is that the individuals at Resolute have been terrific, and we have some ex-Resolute people working for us in HR. And we're about to recruit a Resolute person in mining, senior Resolute person in mining, and all happy, and everyone knows what everyone's doing. So the Resolute people have been very, very, very good. So the relationship's excellent, but I think we need to see what Resolute's path ahead with its management are before. But we're happy to engage with them, and we have engaged with them. So we'll just wait and see what that turns out to be. Any other questions in the room? If not, I'll see if Danica's got any for me.
Yeah, we've got one here from Deshaun Banker, who's asked when production will start.
Well, as I said, we are producing today at the mine, so that will continue. So if we settle on the 31st, it will start on the 1st in our name, and we will be a gold producer on that day.
Great. We've got another one here from Jason Lyon, who's asked, what percentage of shares will Resolute have when all finalised?
I'd probably prefer to wait until the settlement of the tranche 2 happens before that's disclosed. I think that's only fair. Resolute have needed this approval before they can give us our money, so I think we need to let that go through before we do that. And it would require Resolute's permission, so I will get there, but let's do it the right way.
Okay, great. We've got one from Sam Willis, who's asked, what's your view on the current political situation in Mali?
Okay, well, I mean, that's a really good question. So just to revisit, there was a military coup in Mali maybe 2 or 3 months ago. Very unpopular president, the usual story of corruption. There was an election which looked very, very dodgy, and very much a popular uprising. The military stood in. The Regional Association of Nations, ECOWAS, were very, very upset because no one in West Africa wants a precedent of changing governments by at the point of a gun. But so that was not good. But to turn to the positive, Mali is a very consensual kind of country, and the military went out with the opposition and consulted widely in the country, and they actually told the ECOWAS guys that you can't tell us what to do. Malians will decide what Malians want to do, particularly if you've got a gun. But they have in the last few weeks they have appointed a president, prime minister, and government, so that's now all in place. We, as many of you know, we have a condition of no government objection to the transaction. We have, as I mentioned, Seydou's managed to get all the government officials to site. Seydou also managed, the new minister, within a matter of less than a week of when he was appointed, and he's a busy chap. Seydou managed to get 40 minutes with him, explain where we're at, and whilst I can't speak for the government, that meeting went very, very, very well, and I don't foresee any issue with any government issues. In fact, they're very, very supportive. They also know, obviously, about our lithium asset, which I probably should talk about. They're very keen to see that develop too. So the government are very supportive. Life was not really impacted in Mali. If anything, it's an interesting exercise. You know, we worry about sovereign risk, and the reason we worry as a business is business interruption. So will you either lose ownership or lose profits? Neither of those things have happened. So, you know, sovereign risk is important to understand, but I think there's a bit of, I'd almost say it's almost like a racial snobbery when it comes to African countries. Many of the things that happen here, if they were done in a country like that, we'd all be up in arms and feeling very superior, but they dealt with this, I think, very, very well. Any others?
We've got quite a few on the lithium asset, if you want me to just put them all into one question.
Sure, do that.
Yeah. So a few people have said the lithium DFS was incredibly impressive. They want to know about, you know, do you intend to keep this on the back burner until lithium prices improve? Or what are the next steps? What's the time frame? And also, what sort of feedback have you had since the release of the DFS? Okay,
thank you. Well, what we've said is, I mean, and thank you for that. I think Goulamina is, in my view, probably the best of the undeveloped assets. You know, not that really matters. No one's in competition with anyone. It doesn't really matter. The lithium market one day will be big enough to accommodate 20 Goulaminas. But it's got some really good features. One being the quality of the product. You know, it's very, very clean. And the other, I think, is, you know, it's just such a simple operation. It's just a big open pit. The ore body is wonderful. It's big, wide, up to 100 meters wide, really easy to deal with. And the other thing a lot of people worry about is the distance from the coast. Well, you know, Liontown from almost at Walloona to the coast is not a short distance either. But in Mali, everything comes in and out by truck. It's a landlocked country. Everything. They do it all the time. So I mean, I can't get fussed about it at all. And even with that trucking, we end up with one of the lowest costs compared to producers compared to peer developments and current producers. In terms of what we want to do with it, I mean, you know, a flippant answer would be I don't know, and that's because we have to get out there and engage. My gut feeling, is that a lithium asset and a gold asset don't belong in the same company in the long term. That's not to say that won't happen. We'll be thinking strategically over this next few months about where we might go with it. But I think the key for an asset like this is a customer, someone who buys the product. You can have a fancy NPV. You can go out and try and get financing, but there's no point in building something unless you can sell the product. And today we're in a world where here in Western Australia, we've got one of the world's best lithium mines owned by Mineral Resources in Albemarle, 2 huge balance sheets on care and maintenance. Now, if there's stock markets are different from physical markets in the real world. So the stock market is getting excited about lithium again, and rightly so. You're looking forward, it's going to be good. But today, if there was a booming market for spodumene and it was coming back, those guys would be in production. So I think we have to be, we have to be realistic about this. And the last thing we want to do is panic into doing a deal when the lithium markets are still weak. We take our time. We're no longer a $15 million company with a project that we can't build, which was the case 6 months ago. We're now almost a $200 million company. We'll have cash flow, we have strength, and we'll be able to go from a position of strength to look for value. Ideal solution would be that shareholders end up with an asset in Goulamina that has a future and some relationship with a third party, and that you can spin it out and we all get a gold share and a lithium share. That would be the ideal. But what I'd say is, so we're not going to neglect the asset. There's a number of things that we can do to the asset to add value in the interim, and we have to show, we have to be busy to show the government that we're serious about this. So there will be some activities. And you just never know. I think I have been involved in a lot of transactions, and the way that people deal with you when you're weak. We had offers when people thought we were weak, was said, we'll take the project off your hand for a royalty. So, and if you were desperate, a tiny little junior, you might take it. We don't need to do that. We understand the value of this, and I'm driven by one thing in a transaction, and that's shareholder value. I really don't care the configuration of it, but if we deliver values and I make money out of it and you guys make money out of it, that's the aim. So really that's the philosophy with lithium. There's no definitive answer, but we'll be out there and active and see what happens. You just never know. Any others, Danica?
There's a few more back on Marilla, if you have time to answer them. Yep. So there's one question on the pit and there's one on the satellite. So I'll give you the one on the pit first. Daniel wants to know what the timeline looks like to drain the Marilla pit and start drilling.
So drilling around the Marilla pit will probably start in the next 2 or 3 months when we finish the satellite pit drilling and so forth. That will be is not dependent on draining the pit. In terms of timing of draining the pit, it will be next year, but exact timing will depend on how so it's a sequential, crunchingly logical sequential process. You get a resource, then you do an optimization, then you do a mine design, then you do scheduling, and you look at capital and operating costs. And out of that will fall the timing required for dewatering the pit and drilling on the floor of the pit. Almost certainly next year, but the timing will come out of that. So rather than guessing, we just follow through a logical process, normal technical process to arrive at that timing there. So hopefully we're doing some drilling at Marilla itself. It just depends on rig availability and how wet it is. And what we also get when we drill at the satellites, we may get surprises and do a bit more. And one of the great things now is owning Marilla, we've got our own lab. Well, it's run by SGS. We've got a lab at Marilla, so turnaround in assays and so forth is going to be markedly improved. So that's really nice. And the satellite pit question, Danica? Yeah,
so on the satellite pits, Colin wants to know about the all-in sustaining costs. So I'm not sure if you know that, but he's mentioned that the nearby Syama mine quotes 2 different all-in sustaining costs for oxide and sulfide, and he wants to know is ours mostly oxide?
Well, the satellite pits, most of the oxide is gone when they started them. There probably will be a little bit of oxide in our mine plan when it comes together. All-in sustaining costs will fall out of that exercise I just described of resource, reserve, optimization, mine design and scheduling, and that will fall out of that and we'll give that. I wouldn't like to speculate what that number would be at this stage, but clearly we're not going to do it unless we make money. Yeah. So it'll be less than the current gold price. It's just a question of how much. I just stress again, the purpose of the satellite pits and the tailings is this bridge to the main game. So what hopefully we'll do is we'll be making the estimate is 17 million US margin for the tailings, plus whatever margin we make from the satellites. And that provides a lot of working capital and capital that we can apply to the Marilla pit and things like reconfiguring the tailings dam, temporary power solutions, reestablishing roads, pushing back the Marilla pit itself, all that kind of thing. And if we need more money, we're investigating getting a working capital facility for the company such that we can never be caught with our pants down.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and so there's a question that's come through about share price prediction, which obviously we can't speak to, but
no, I can talk about that.
Well, I guess they could be directed to the recent Euros research as well, but if you would like
I think it's really easy to answer questions about future prices. It will go up and it will go down. I'm not sure when and in what order. And because if I did, I'd be already sitting in my yacht in the Bahamas if I could predict the world like that.
Okay, so last one, we've got a question about, potential new zones, future exploration and the sort of, I guess, the discovery potential there outside the Marilla pit and the satellites.
Well, I mean, I've been involved in exploration all my working life, and from a business perspective, it's one of the most fun things you can do, but it's also really just an opportunity to spend money. The best way to answer the question about Marilla and its potential is, I think, if you go to the analogies we have here in Western Australia. So what we have at Marilla, we have the tailings resource, we have the past production, and we have our big resource. We're at nearly 9 million ounces with that of gold endowment, although ASX don't let me say that word. This is a big, big gold field. There's lots of targets around about it. And if you go to any of these similar assets in Western Australia, if they had suffered 10 years of no drilling and you went back to them, if you imagine if you stopped Kanauna Bell or Sunrise Dam 10 years ago, and then you went back to it, there'd be, these are big systems. They don't just stop. And there's often repeats, extensions, other things. You just don't know. The big thing about exploration is that you don't want to be too fixed in your views. The word discovery means that you didn't know beforehand. So you don't want any hubris. You allow yourself to be surprised. One of the things I've always done in exploration programs is you fight to the death with the geologists over the budget and so forth, and make sure they can't spend money. And then you, once you've agreed to everything, again, say, oh, here's an extra 10%, just go and do whatever you want, because you never know. And what we want to do really is get out there. There's a whole bunch of targets, extensions to deposits, soil anomalies, and ideas that we probably don't even know that we, the unknown unknowns or whatever. So you got to get out there and get into it. And as we learn more about Marilla, our ideas will get better informed and more sophisticated. But I just see this as dead simple. There's nearly 10 million ounces there. Why can't there be another 10? I mean, it happens in other places. Why not here? I mean, these things usually go to the center of the earth, gold systems. Well, not quite, but certainly for a few kilometers.
Well, that's great. I think there's a couple more questions in there, but I know we've got to wrap things up. So if anyone's got any other questions, then you can feel free to email them through. Our details are on the bottom of all the ASX announcements. So yeah, we'll answer them all. Okay, well, we'll wrap it up there. And just again, thank you very much for everyone taking an interest in the company. And hopefully we can deliver some more for you in this next little while. So thank you very much.